Most first-time Porsche buyers think the mistake is overpaying. It is not. The real mistake is buying the wrong cheap Porsche and getting crushed after delivery, because that pretty listing turns into tires, brakes, fluids, and repair bills before the plates are even on the car. Full stop. The idiot tax is optional, and you pay it when you skip the process. Trust a story and buy the cheap car instead of the right car. One bad Porsche can fund years of avoidable repairs. In the next few minutes, we're going to build a buying process you can trust. And later, I'll show you the one report that scares first-time buyers for the wrong reason. So you know what to check, what to verify, and when to walk. So before you scroll listings at midnight and fall in love with a paint color, build your buy box. This is where smart Porsche buying starts. Not with emotion, not with hype, with numbers, use case, and deal killers. Start with total budget, not purchase price. This is the first trap. Say you find a cheap 997 at 45 grand and tell yourself you're a $45,000 buyer. No, you are buying the car, the tax, the registration, the insurance, the transport if it is out of state, the PPI, and the first round of catch-up work. Then it lands needing tires for $1,500, a major fluid service for $800, front brakes for $1,200, and a battery. Your bargain just turned into roughly 49 grand before registration, and we have not even touched hidden problems yet. Porsche is not transportation. You are buying the engineering, the feel, the heritage, and the right to walk into your garage and know you got it right. But if the financial base is weak, that same feeling turns into stress fast. Next, pick your use case before you pick a model. Weekend car, daily grind, school runs, Costco runs, long road trips, city car, back road toy. These decide what kind of Porsche fits your life. A car that works as a Sunday toy may be wrong for traffic, bad roads, or year-round duty. A sports car this good should fit the real world, because that is part of what makes Porsche different. Then set your non-negotiables: coupe or cab, manual or PDK, rear seats or not, sports seats or standard, color, mileage band, service history quality, number of owners, accident history. Put these into two buckets: wants and deal killers. Do not mix them. A rare color is a want. Missing records can be a deal killer. Bose is a want. Bad paintwork might be a deal killer. Manual may be a must for you. Fine, just decide that before you shop, not after you get attached. Buying a Porsche is really about where you want the risk to live. That sounds cold, but it saves you, because you are deciding how much pain can land in the first 12 months. Once your buy box is tight, the market gets much easier to read. Now you know your budget, your use case, and your non-negotiables. So the next question is, where do you actually buy the car? Because the market is not one market, it is a stack of different risk profiles, and each one changes how hard you need to work. Let's start with CPO. Certified pre-owned is the sleep-at-night route. You pay more upfront, period. But that premium buys you a financial hedge. Not perfection, not magic, and there is a gate to even get in. As of the current Porsche rules, buyers usually reference CPO applies to cars up to 13 model years old and under 124,000 miles. But always confirm the live policy with Porsche because these limits can change. So a lot of older, cheaper cars are out before the conversation even starts. A warranty is not a force field. It will not erase wear items, old tires, thin brakes, or cosmetic age. But if your risk tolerance is low, or this is your first Porsche, CPO can make real sense because it limits the size of a bad surprise. Then you have private party sales from enthusiast circles, Renlist, PCA, local mark groups. This is often where the smart money hunts because enthusiast ownership usually leaves a paper trail. The seller knows what a water pump is, knows when the brake fluid was done, knows the tire date codes, and usually has a folder full of receipts. we would rather buy from a disciplined enthusiast than from a random dealer who took the car on trade and knows nothing beyond the window sticker. And later, when we get into records, you will see why some low-mile garage queens are not prizes at all. They are delayed bills. Franchise dealers sit in the middle. Some are excellent, some are just moving inventory. Independent dealers are even more mixed. There are good ones, and there are polish and pray operations that clean the paint, steam the engine bay, and tell a beautiful story with very little underneath it. Auction sites can work, but the photos are strong, the pressure is high, and the comments can make a car feel vetted when it is not. Before we talk about the good sellers, here is the rapid fire section. No records for the last few years. A freshly steamed, clean engine bay that hides seepage. A seller who will not allow a PPI at your shop. Vague answers instead of dates and invoices. Too many owners in a short stretch. Pressure lines like, "I have another buyer flying in tomorrow." See that? Close the tab. So how do you read the seller? Start with the binder. Receipts beat stories every single time. A good seller has the VIN ready. The options list, service dates, tire age, battery age, known flaws, and a straight answer on cold starts, oil use, and what the car needs next. You want specifics. When were the plugs done? When were the coils done? How old are the tires? Any paint work? Any warning lights? Any leaks? Has the PDK been serviced where applicable? Has the car ever been tuned? Modified cars can muddy the DME story later. Now, this is where most people mess up. They fall for presentation, fresh detail, glossy photos, good spec, nice garage. That is not evidence. And when it comes to negotiation, use real anchors. A missing DME report is not a reason to kill a deal by itself, but it can be worth a few $100s because you now have to source that information. Thin records are worth more than that. Old tires, overdue fluid service, weak brakes, dead battery, these are real costs. Do not negotiate with feelings. Negotiate with invoices. Now the real work starts. Most buyers glance at the records and look for the big shiny invoice. Clutch, water pump, major service, done. That is not how you audit a Porsche. Read the file like an analyst, not a fan. Start with cadence. We care about time and mileage. A fat invoice means less than steady care. If you see long gaps, that matters. A car that got serviced every year or on schedule tells you the owner stayed ahead of problems. A car with a big stack from 1 month and then silence for years tells a different story. You can see deferred maintenance in the rhythm of the paperwork. Then look for repeat fixes. Same leak twice? Same warning twice? Same battery drain complaint? Same cooling fault? That is how you find cars that never got sorted. Also, watch the language. You want OEM or known high-quality parts. And look at the paperwork itself. If 10 years of service stamps look like the same ink, the same handwriting, and the same afternoon, do not treat that binder like proof. A real history looks uneven because real ownership is uneven. Now, check age-based work, not just mileage-based work. Spark plugs, ignition coils, serpentine belt, brake fluid, battery age, PDK service where applicable, coolant work and drive components as needed. A low-mile Porsche can still be overdue because rubber ages, fluid absorbs moisture, and time attacks parts even when the odometer looks pretty. That 45 grand 997 can have low miles, old Michelins, stale fluids, and an aging battery all at once. Garage queens are not always bargains. Sometimes they are delayed bills. This is also where little cosmetic clues matter. A 991.1 with warped door panels tells you about heat, storage, and exposure. A Cayman or a Boxster with the optional hardtop with a sagging headliner tells you the interior has been baking. Those may seem minor, but they can point to a pattern. There are also model-specific breadcrumbs that help test credibility. A 997.2 file with fuel system history is worth understanding. A 981 or 991 with vacuum line-related cooling warnings should make you slow down and read more carefully. None of these items automatically kill a deal. They tell you whether the records are honest and complete. And here is a move smart buyers use all the time. Call the servicing dealer or independent shop when you can. Give them the VIN. Ask if they can confirm the work. They will not give you the prior owner's life story, but many will verify what was done, when it was done, and sometimes what they recommended that never got approved. That is gold. Now let's talk price logic. Missing or weak records should not trigger drama. They should trigger math. Missing DME report, maybe a few $100s. Weak binder, maybe $1,000 to $2,000 depending on the car and what is absent. Old tires can easily mean $1,500 to $2,000. Overdue fluids, several hundred more. Headliner, door cards, aging battery, all small on their own. Stack that onto our $45,000 997 and you're not staring at a bargain anymore. You are pricing in the pain. Paperwork can save you from a bad Porsche. It cannot see inside the engine. That is why the next step matters. And before we finish, I will give you the exact green light checklist that tells you when to buy. Now we get to the part that separates Porsche buyers from Porsche gamblers. The PPI is not a formality or a quick thumbs up from a shop that says, yeah, seems fine. A real PPI is forensic work, and a thorough one can take 6 to 12 hours. You are paying a specialist to look past the shine, the seller story, and your own excitement so you do not buy a problem with a crest on the hood. Use a Porsche specialist who knows the generation you're shopping. Full stop. Not a general European shop if you can help it. You want someone who knows what normal looks like on that exact platform, because that is how they spot what is off. And do not use the seller's regular shop unless there's no other option. Fresh eyes matter. So what do you ask for? A full fault scan, underbody inspection, leak check, suspension wear review, brake pad and rotor measurement, tire condition and date codes, a paint meter on the body, and when the car and engine family justify it, compression and leak down testing, sometimes a bore scope too. Tell the shop your deal killers before they start. Paint work, crash repair, bore scoring risk, heavy leaks, internal engine problems, too much metal in the filter. Whatever your lines are, state them up front and tell them to stop if they hit one. This is where that $45,000 997 either holds up or falls apart. This is the part where first-time buyers either get spooked for no reason or get lazy and miss something expensive. Let's get into the DME, because this is the report that scares first-time buyers for the wrong reason. If you get a report back and see range 1 counts, do not assume the engine is done. DME over rev data showed up on modern Porsche cars starting around the 996 and 986 Boxster era. So if you're shopping an older air-cooled car, this digital trail is not part of the file. The DME report is one tool, not the whole case. It shows over rev ranges, ignition counts, and operating hours, and the exact RPM windows can vary by model. Here is what matters. Range 1 and 2 usually mean the engine just brushed the limiter. Range 4 through 6 are the expensive ones, because they often point to a bad downshift that forced the engine past its safe speed, and the limiter cannot save it, especially on a manual car. Operating hours matter as much as the counts. Divide mileage by operating hours and you get an average speed. Very low can mean lots of short trips and heat cycles. Very high can mean hard to use. So ask more questions. And if the over-rev happened hundreds of hours ago, that matters. One old event, followed by years of clean running and a strong PPI, is not the same as something recent. That timing can also matter in a warranty fight, because Porsche has been known to deny engine claims if the damage ties back to a major over-rev within roughly 70 operating hours. Tuned cars make the DME harder to read. Raised rev limits can muddy the ranges, and modified software can cloud the story. That does not mean every tuned car is junk. It means you need more caution. more records, and usually more discount. Now layer in the paint meter and body check. Carfax misses things, period. A meter can find repainted panels, filler, and repair work the seller forgot to mention. Then the underbody tells the next chapter. Bent hardware, crushed jack points, scrapes, seepage, tired control arms, worn bushings. The shop is building a risk map of the whole car. And look at what happens when buyers skip this. They save a few $100s on the front end and step into $5,000 of tires, brakes, and leaks right after delivery. No PPI, no deal. Missing DME? Discount it. Paintwork? Discount it more. Old tires, then brakes, suspension wear, that is real money on that same $45,997. Do not chase the cheapest Porsche. Use the findings to adjust price or walk, not to win an argument with the seller. Here is the green light. Honest seller, solid records, strong PPI, explainable DME, money left for year one catch-up. If that $45,997 clears those tests, buy it. If it does not, move on. Your first Porsche is not the one with the best color, the rarest spec, or the lowest price. It is the one that survives the audit.